Okay, this will be a very short one. All I want to do is look at Ace King 5. We did want to have a checking back range, as we remember, and I just wanted to see what should out of position strategy be, basically, when he's checked to or check backed on. So we should include an overbet here. Okay, let's calculate. Guess he's going to overbet most flush draws and quite a few aces. Checking all kings. And yeah, let's wait and see. So here we see a couple solutions. So they should be overbetting as their main sizing. Overbetting with every ace, okay. Yeah, overbet is basically the only sizing. Maybe you could do half full pot with a king, or just overbet like strong kings, like king 10 plus can overbet. Pretty much every two can overbet in this situation. Blocking two pairs. I'm guessing those are the best bluffs, and overbetting like most gut shots even, and overbetting pretty much every flush draw. Okay, so we're still checking back most of our total air. So, but still, we will check back Queen Jack and Queen 10 as well. That's good to note. If we check, he should be block betting. So if we check twice to him, our range for checking is so capped, and his flop range is already quite capped. So it doesn't really make much sense to put in a big bet on the turn. Well, it's half pot here. Maybe it could even be smaller, right? Let me just remove these. And add one big blind. Maybe it's gonna bet one big blind a bit more. We can look at this to see what happens on the rivers. So when we do overbet on the turn, let's just see like a blank river. He calls, and we would jam all twos. Okay, so all twos will be turned into a bluff. All aces for value. All two pairs, yeah. So we're not gonna slow play. We will just be jamming all our value and capping ourselves quite hard. We're not going to expect him to bluff too much, but even if he does, we're gonna have to check call sometimes with some king 2 maybe. We will occasionally have an ace, like a weak ace sometimes, and we might have to call with even queen high, kind of funly. Yeah, okay. Let me just jam my only sizing here. I want to get an idea if we're checking some more aces. We very rarely check aces. We check almost all kings. Yeah, jamming most twos. Yeah, what I said, jamming two pairs. We're checking king 5 though. Were we overbetting every 5 on the turn? Yeah, we were overbetting every 5 as well. Not just twos, we were also overbetting all 5s. Okay. On the river, we're checking all 5s, jamming all 2s. And jamming, I don't know, a bit less than half of our gut shots, looks like. And if we did overbet with total trash, we're also giving up with that. He should be calling all aces and about half of his kings. Alright, and on the turn, after checking back, the standard sizing should indeed be only one big blind. We're doing that with all of our kings, except king 4, it has a gut shot. And all of our 5s, which we didn't have many of, which we checked back. And all our aces, which we did check back on the flop. And 10s and 9s. Quite intuitive, and I guess our bluffs will be betting small quite often as well, which will generally be like queen high backdoor flush draw or something. Okay, and we get called, we get a blank river. Funny, he can donk. Can I just make this guy like check 100%, because I don't think people will just randomly donk on an 8. So we can go for a pot size bet on the river with our aces and our, like, yeah, aces and better. Yeah, basically only aces and better. And we do bluff all our queen 9, which was our only bluff. Okay, so I just wanted to get an idea of what type of sizings we want to use here. Pretty basic spots. Maybe we can check out some more interesting rivers. Maybe 3 of spades completes a lot. I think maybe we're going to need more sizings now. What's a quarter of the pot? It's going to be about 4. I'll just put a block bet of like 4 big blinds here. And on the 3, now on the 3 I wouldn't be surprised to see more donks. He should be donking small in general, like half pot, or even smaller, I guess. Most of his kings, all his 4s, most of his kings just getting value, turning queen jack into a bluff. Okay. Turning queen 5 into a bluff. Flushes are 100% being checked. And when checked to, we will have mixed sizings, but generally it's going to either be pot or shove. Jamming our flushes, not always though. Potting our aces still. Okay, this looks complicated. So, half pot, block bet, jam. 2s are still bluffing as a block bet. That's interesting. 4s betting half pot. Flushes are jamming. So that's our value range. We have extremely few like bluffing combos, but we're still not bluffing too much. If we do bluff, we do want to have a spade blocker at least, so 8-7 with a spade, 7-6. So if we're going to bluff all in, we definitely need a spade blocker. If we're going to block bet, bluff, we need bottom pair. So that's why hands like 9-2, 10-2 are going to be block betting on the river as a bluff. 2 pairs are mostly checking. Yeah, ace-2, ace-5, ace-3, these make good block bets for value, basically. Yeah, the 4s are... It's interesting because this is actually a river where it makes sense to have 4 sizings, which just isn't that common, actually, to have actually 3 sizings that make a lot of sense. So half pot with straights, and then sometimes half pot with like straight blockers, I guess. Straight plus pair blockers. 5's always checking. Alright. I just wanted to look a bit at how rivers play out. Like, if it's a blank river, we will be jamming. If it's a very connected river, we're going to have a lot of different sizings, which makes a lot of sense. It's how it's going to play on a lot of runouts. And I wanted to check river delay, what happens when in position delays as well, since we didn't look at too many rivers. Okay, that's good to quickly look at. Next thing I want to look at is going to be this. And I want to look at ace king suited, I think. Ace king 5 suited. So first things first, ace king 5 rainbow and ace king 5 suited. Checking range is kind of similar. Main difference is we're using a large sizing much more on the suited board. Well, two reasons. Firstly, we need more protection with our aces and strong hands, so we keep on value betting them. But secondly, we have more of those types of hands that are able to bet large with and don't necessarily want to get check raised. So queen 9 is total trash on a rainbow board. If you have queen 9 with a heart, with the queen of hearts, you may want to be using the large bet sizing here, as we see. Jack 9, same idea, like even 9 of hearts is good enough here to go large. So we're just going to naturally have more hands to go large with on this board. So it's intuitively, it shouldn't really change too much how we play. It's just our frequencies with the large sizing will be higher. So we already looked at some rainbow turns. I'm kind of interested on like what happens if a flush comes on the turn here. He's supposed to be donking rather small sometimes. What is this? 1/3 pot, looks like it. But mostly he's checking anyways. And our bet size should be about half pot in general. Maybe it could even be smaller, so I'm just going to add a note here. Let's say 3. Let's calculate that. Okay, so as we see on this turn, the only sizing we should be using is a block bet for in position. And we block bet with most of our aces. And basically the thing is, like, flushes are some of the most likely hands that villain called that flop large bet with. Therefore, we want to get protection with our aces and bet small, but it's going to be our only sizing. We might want to do it occasionally with a hand like a king, especially with a heart. Maybe king 8. Well, okay, that's a flush. But yeah, our bluffing range will also be composed of those type of hands. Going to be bluffing some 9s and some 7s and 5s. Checking back weaker aces. So what was the turn? 7. So here, I don't think our bluffing range will change too much. Yeah, the bluffs actually don't change like dramatically. It's mainly the sizing that changes a ton. We're just using a much smaller sizing with a much more merged range, and then we're gonna just polarize on rivers, basically. So on rivers, I'm expecting to see like at least 2 sizings, or maybe it would only jam like 2 pair plus or something. Maybe that's the strategy it would choose. We can check later. see. Let's take a look at the bluffs. Okay, just pure air. Okay, looks like the stronger draws here. So most pure air is just going to give up, as we see. We need some type of a gut shot at least in order to be bluffing, and it has to be the stronger ones. Like 8-6s and 8-9, still amazing hands to be checking back. Don't want him to attack like a 4 too much on the river. Okay, what I want to do is I want to make him check his entire range, because it's very possible that a player might do that. We're going to be bluffing much less. We didn't even have many bluffs, so now we might check almost our entire range. That's what's making me curious here. Okay, so let's see. Player 1 checking entire range. And this guy doesn't look like very much changed, actually. I guess it's because player 1 or out of position also had to be donking like some bluffs, which most people aren't doing. I mean, before I think we were betting ace-8. I could try to check. Ace-king-5. Okay, so we bet large. 7 of hearts. So what should he be bluffing? He should be bluffing all open-ended, so all combinations of 6-8. Well, he doesn't have any 6-8. Okay. 2 pairs, naked top pairs sometimes, and a good amount of nothing. So, alright, apart from 4-3, there's actually not that much to be bluffing. He should be bluffing a good amount of 5s and 4s, like a good amount of bottom pairs. Okay. And in terms of range, differences for in position, checking back with ace-king more. Good hand to call river probes now, basically. Ace-king. Let's see. Yeah, really not much of a difference with anything else. I thought there might be more of a difference, but it's good to see that barreling ranges don't have to change too much. Right, good to note. And then we can just quickly look at rivers. So let's say a blank, 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 blank. What's the blank? Probably a 2 by this point. So he calls. He should be check raising. He shouldn't even check raise all flushes, but a good amount of flushes. Some 2 pairs, especially king 5. But most of his value check raise range should be like flushes. Calling all flush draws. So yeah, putting in a small bet also gets a lot of value from like these flush draws. He should even be folding a good amount of kings. That's something I don't think people will be doing too much. Like, I don't think people will be folding kings on the turn. Check, check. And then on the river, the only sizing is going to be like all in. Alright, good to note. And we're basically jamming all of our air. Like all of our air and checking all top pairs. So we don't even have that much value, like we're only jamming 2 pairs plus, but we still jam all of our air that we did barrel. But the important thing is not to barrel too much. on the turn. I mean, give up with all backdoor diamonds. Give up with all... Okay, I mean, it's hard to barrel too much on the turn even. And let's just see, this guy will call too much on turns. Maybe not king 5, but let's just make him call all kings. I wonder if that's gonna work. Yeah, he's got all kings now. And our jamming range doesn't change. We still jam all of our air and basically 2 pairs plus. We can now consider jamming some aces just for value. So, like ace, ace 10 plus with a heart blocker. Those make for good jams for value now, if we think they're going to call enough kings. And especially enough aces. Like, I don't think many people will be folding aces here. So it looks like we can still be jamming for value now with aces. Let's see. Just don't think they're folding aces here. And okay, so yeah. Now they're calling all aces. Therefore we can jam like ace 9 plus for value. As long as it's got a blocker for sure. I mean, sometimes it's not jamming, but pretty low frequency, not jamming. And now all of a sudden a lot of our air has just like stopped. Maybe I should get rid of the other sizings. So like our air, 10-9, we're gonna stop bluffing with queen high basically, because that was the worst of our air. We're gonna stop bluffing like weak pairs as well, like 8-5. And we're jamming like ace, like we can jam like ace 10, ace jack now, almost always just for value. Okay. Oh, I need to unlock that strategy. I want to take a look again, jamming all air, but not jamming 5s or 7s on the river. Okay. Cool. Maybe look at river flush. Still jamming a good amount of aces just for value. So when the backdoor flush comes, we can jam aces a lot for value because they have less backdoor flush draws themselves from the flop. They're not going to be calling like 10-3 of hearts on the flop, for example. And yeah. So they should call aces and better. And what are we making them fold? Kings, basically. Okay. so on that river they're supposed to be folding kings. Okay, cool. So we already looked at the turn spot earlier, so don't need to do that again, I think. Alright, so next thing I want to look at would be, for example, ace queen jack, I think. Or ace queen 5, I mean. Ace queen 5. So basically ace queen 5 will play extremely similar. The only difference is we have less of a checking range. So basically on the only boards we want to have a checking range on ace xx boards will be ace king x type of boards. Otherwise we basically always bet on an ace high board. I think that's important to make clear. Yeah, and the overall strategy, again, I like using two sizings here. And the hands you want to do it with, again, very intuitive, you know. Do it with your backdoors a bunch. Some offsuit gut shots. And bet small, total trash, like 9-6 of clubs will be betting small, for example. And weaker queens will be betting small. King jack and king 10, those make sense to be betting large as gut shots. Do we bet any queens for large sizing? It looks like queen 9 sometimes. I don't understand why. I'd rather be betting king queen. But okay. Probably because we're betting small with a large part of our range here. Anyways. Is there a difference in rainbow? Probably not too much, right? Yeah, it looks basically the same. Again, slightly more large sizing when there's a flush draw on board. So it's going to be quite intuitive how to play once you know what types of hands you want to be betting large and betting small with. And, you know, I also did ace 10-5 to see if there's much of a difference. Ace... Oh no, I didn't do ace 10-5. Whoops. Well, I did it here, right? Yeah, okay. Oh well, too bad. But basically on ace 10-5 it will look the same for suited hands. On ace 10-5 we can just go and, again, same strategy as ace king 5 and ace queen 5. I like using two sizings. I think that works by far the best. So basically we can conclude on ace high boards with another Broadway card, and the third card is disconnected. We should use a two sizing strategy. And the hands we want to be doing that with are very intuitive. We want to be betting large with our weaker backdoor draws, with less high cards, because we don't want to get check raised with those. We can bet small with maybe like king 7. I wonder if we can call against a check raise with king 7. No, we can't, but okay, I guess he's less likely to check raise anyways. King 7 also has just a lot of, like, we're going to fold out. Like, he's supposed to call some king highs, like king 8 with a backdoor flush draw. We fold those out, so that's why kings get put into the small bet range more than other hands, for example. And betting small with most underpairs, apart from jacks. 2s and 3s occasionally can be put into the large bet sizing as a bluff. Otherwise quite intuitive. You're betting large ace 8 plus, betting small weaker aces. I don't mind betting small with like ace queen with a backdoor flush draw either. So quite intuitive, I think. Alright, let's go to the monotone version. So now I want to look at monotone. Ace king 5, ace queen 5, because I found something quite interesting here. So we need ace queen 5, mono GTO. Yeah, I did a lot of calcs for these because I was really looking for the best strategy. It was quite unintuitive. I do have ace 10-5 mono as well. All right, great. So the best strategy, well, I mean GTO here. Oh, I don't even, okay, well, ace 10-5, I didn't even put multiple sizings. I didn't include half pot. But as we see, like large sizings on monotone boards are basically never used. Like you never want to go polarized on a monotone board because the other player should have just as many, if not more flushes than you. So, but the fact is, on ace king 5 and ace queen 5, they still, like, we still hit the board really hard. We still have a ton of aces, we still have a ton of kings and queens. We should have a ton of tens, but it's not. Yeah, I didn't pick it here, unfortunately. I didn't include the half pot sizing. And interestingly enough, we have a ton of checkbacks on these boards. Like we're checking back like so much of our range, you know. So let's just analyze ace king 5 only. So here we got ace king 5 half pot only, ace king 5 half pot entire range. So actually we should check out one big blind only. So even if we bet only one big blind as our only sizing on ace king 5, he should still have a checking back range, actually, which is kind of insane. So it's good to learn how to exploit these type of players who are betting. I think a lot of people might bet one big blind entire range on ace king 5. So we can try to find out how to exploit players on this board because they should have been checking back like 10% or more. So over here, we do want to raise a bunch of two pairs, but we should also raise basically, and our sizing should be small. I did include a 5 big blind raise, but on monotone boards, GTO would never raise large. Again, flushes don't need to raise large, basically. So, these gut shots need to raise 100% of the time, basically. Unless you have a heart to go with it. So 5-4, 5-3, 4-3. Unless you've got a heart to go with it, you just raise. Same over here. 4-3 of hearts is raising now, just because it's got value, obviously. But I mean the offsuit combos. Another interesting thing is we should be raising a ton with just like Queen 8, Jack 8 with the low flush. So, okay, not Jack 7 with the Jack of Hearts, Queen 8 with the, okay, so actually it's with the high flush card. So if we have Queen high, Jack high, 10 high offsuited combo, we just raise with the Queen of Hearts. They're betting way too much of their range. We won't fold out too much, but basically I think we're going to use those as bluffs even on turns. And we do still raise our king 5 two pairs, but we're not raising like any aces because aces don't even have value to raise against someone who's betting one big blind entire range. So basically we raise a ton, as we see. Folding range shouldn't change too much. We should call some of our flushes for sure. So we still call all our kings, and we still call all our 5s to one big blind. So our folding range is still quite intuitive. But yeah, we need to just flat some of our flushes. And which flushes are best to be flatting? It looks like kind of, I don't know how to say, like these stronger ones up here. So we want basically 2 overcards to the 5. And yeah, 2 overcards to the 5 is one of the main things. But other than that, like if it has 1 undercard to the 5, we always raise. 2 overcards to the 5, and the weaker it is, the more we call, because we're raising Queen 7 and Queen 6, and Jack 7 and Jack 6. So the strongest flushes here we would raise. So the kind of middling flushes, so connected flushes, we can say we raise. Although, you know, I don't think it matters too much. Basically, I would raise any 2 overcards to the 5. I would be mixing like 50-50, and then if there's 1 undercard to the 5, I would always be raising. I think that's a good way of simplifying. And as we notice again, we do have a huge amount of bluffs, and we can't fold a single flush draw. So an interesting thing now would be to analyze what happens after we raise. So we can just bring like blank runouts, like a 7 of diamonds, not checking very much. We're basically barreling. I wonder if we should even have a block bet sizing. So let's say 3. Probably 3 makes a lot of sense on the turn. And I'll let this calculate. Okay, here we are. Also, by the way, if we do raise only 3 big blinds, he should never ever re-raise. Like, he should just fold or call. So I think maybe some people might re-raise like ace king or ace 5 or some 2 pairs, or maybe they'll just call with their flushes, or like get protection with ace queen plus a flush draw. I don't know, but they should call their entire range. So probably people's ranges will be even weaker. So let's take a look at what our barreling range should look like. And basically any like bluff we had on the flop, we just barrel. So we barrel everything apart from like 5s. Okay. Pretty much barrel everything except a 5. Maybe some of the gut shots, but any of the flush draws that we raised on the flop, we're just barreling 100% of the time. Half pot, so we're not using block bet. Half pot is the sizing to use. Let's just say another, like, I don't know, maybe the 10 comes. What should they call firstly? So they're supposed to be folding a good amount of their gut shots now without the flush draw. Basically, they should fold. Even like ace 9 just has to fold, and they should be jamming at this point some hands like ace king, ace 5 for protection, as well as 3s and 2s as a bluff. Lol. They should be calling sometimes with pocket 9s or pocket 8s or pocket 6s. Oh no, they should call with a flush draw. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I don't understand why ace 9 is folding, but king 9 is calling. Anyways. But yeah, again, lots of calling going on. They're never raising a flush. And let's just bring a blank like 10 on the river, basically. And we're still gonna jam a good amount of our bluffs, you know, we're still jamming like half of our bluffs, like 10-7 and 10-8 is always, so any weak pair that we barreled, so if we river the 10, we're gonna jam as a bluff now, basically. And we still jam a bit with hands like, well, actually queen 7 is also a pair, interesting. Nothing 4. Okay, so we're not gonna triple barrel jam too much. And they should by this point fold some aces. They probably won't fold too many of their aces, but they will raise them on previous streets, so they might not even have enough of them, basically. let's say like the river's a 2, will it change much? So the 2 completes 4-3, which is in our range. And now we are jamming pretty much everything. We're basically not checking. Well, we can check Jack 9 and Jack 6, but because the 3-4 is definitely more in our range since we check raised it, we basically don't need to have a checking range. So yeah, we can play really aggressively out of position, even if they bet 1 big blind, which is quite unintuitive on like from these positions. So I'm definitely going to be attacking more after analyzing this. I think it's quite interesting. And yeah, he should be calling aces, so it's even hard to be over bluffing here because like he should be calling most of his kings still. So like if we get them to fold kings, we're already winning a ton by just taking a raise half pot jam line, which is kind of sick, but I kind of like it. And yeah, important to remember what hands we need to be raising. So a bit more than half our flush draws and all of these gut shot type of hands and all of these just offsuited hands with a strong flush draw, basically. It's pretty sick. However, the connected ones we do tend to call more. Okay, we're not raising these connected ones. Good to know. And again, it was interesting that like we're still barreling like the 7s here. We're not checking them. Just turning these into a straight up bluff, which I like because like how often will we win at showdown with a 7? Really, probably not too often. So I think that was how to exploit people who use like 1 big blind only on ace king 5, which isn't terrible because you know a lot of people won't be reacting like this actually. So in this spot I don't mind 1 big blind only, but basically I like something else that I found. But since a lot of people do play like this, I think it's important to know how to counter that. All right, now let's look at the strategy that I propose, or that I'm going to use after some analysis. So here we've got GTO, which is betting half pot as its only sizing, not using any other sizings as we see, and I did include it, so half pot only, and it's got a massive checking range, like checking almost 40% of the time. So here we've got half pot only. It's basically the exact same thing. I just removed the other sizings. Here we have half pot entire range. So let's look at the EVs. 2.973, 2.974. So those two, we're comparing GTO to almost GTO. 2.927. So over here we do get quite a bit of EV loss, but the question is, will they be reacting properly? Because I think it's a spot where even though we're losing a lot of EV, they're going to make some massive mistakes. I'm going to open this too now. So first things first, they need to be folding every single 5. Even when we're betting half pot with our entire range, they need to be folding every single 5, which I'm not sure people are doing. Second thing, like I found it unintuitive to raise these type of hands against 1 big blind, so I'm sure almost everyone will find it unintuitive to raise them against half pot. When we bet half pot GTO wise, they play correctly by not raising these type of hands and raising a much more value heavy range. So I think a lot of people will be playing like this when we bet 100% of our range, basically. Also, another thing, and one of the reasons I didn't want to follow GTO and just have a check backing range here is because it is actually a bit unintuitive, especially once we get to other boards like ace queen 5 or ace 10 5, it's going to get quite unintuitive how to play, and like what hands we want to be checking back. And it's kind of obvious what hands we're checking back, and others will kind of play against us really well. So on this specific board, I like employing a half pot full range strategy, entire range. And they have to be check raising ace 10, ace 9, ace 7, king 5, king 3, king 2, 5 3, 5 2, all of these offsuited combos. I just don't think people are doing that, especially if like it's only on certain boards where we're doing this, you know, because we've studied this, and so we just use this in this spot. I think we should be pretty safe from getting exploited here, as long as we don't show this to anyone. So basically, I really love this strategy, because I don't think anyone is going to play like this against us. Also, as I said, it's like I found it, you know, like when we do check here, like I don't want to check back with a lot of these hands and then just check again on turns, or like block bet on turns, which I'm guessing it's gonna do. Like I'm guessing we're just gonna block bet on the turn. Let's see, we're using half pot here, but I didn't include the block, so I need to include that. Okay, let's calculate 1 second. Yeah, okay, so no block betting on the turn, just gonna bet half pot as a delay with a lot of kings. Yeah. Okay, again, quite unintuitive how to play on turns after checking back. Oh no, we check back here, okay. And we're gonna check twice. Like, I don't think we're maximizing our value, basically. So I think the way to maximize value is to bet our entire range. And a lot of people, I think, are gonna like feel forced to call with a 5. Sometimes, like, even if they call once, that's the mistake, and they're not gonna raise nearly enough, as I already mentioned. Like, they have to raise all of these combos. So I really like this strategy, basically. We could try to look at a few turns, how our strategy should look after betting, and again, it's quite intuitive, I think. Let me add a node here. Open, is this the exploit? I think this is the exploit, right? So here I have how I think people will really be playing. So I made them call all their 5s. I made them not raise with like 4 3 4 2. I actually made them fold, which I don't know, it probably won't make a big difference. But I didn't change how often they raise their flushes. I didn't change how often they raise their 2 pairs, although I made them fold sometimes, which isn't good. But anyways, whatever. Like I didn't change how often they raise their like bluffs, like these bluff offsuited hands. So I just made them call more with 5s and not raise as much, basically. And then, yeah. So on the turn, okay, I need to calculate this. Here, exploitatively, we can be using mixed sizings. I don't mind that. But 3/4 is also fine. We can barrel thin for value, even with hands like King Jack, King 10, definitely King Queen, and checking back the weaker aces. I mean, basically after checking back, it plays very like intuitively, you know, like we're still trying to get value. we're also going to be able to barrel quite a lot with just like random air. Since like now that they called on the flop with a 5, they're going to have like a lot more random hands that they have to fold on the turns. So on the turn, we're going to fold them out of all their 5s and some kings, good amount of their flush draws as well. So like I really like just betting half pot with our range, and then having a very high barreling frequency and barreling quite thin for value as well with kings, and barreling a lot of air, but also still barreling most of our value. So I like that plan. Half pot entire range. And we can also like compare Ace Queen 5 GTO here. Again, Ace Queen 5 GTO would be betting half pot and it would have a high check back range, but again, in reality, I'm just going to be betting half pot my entire range, and I think that's going to function best. And again, they need to follow the same strategy. They need to raise all of these weird hands. They need to raise like kings with a king eye flush draw. They need to check raise like 9-8 with a 9-high flush draw, like jack 8 with a jack high flush draw. Like I just don't think people are doing that. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to bet half pot entire range here, exploitatively. Finally, ace 10-5. We got half pot only here. Again, there'd be a lot of checking back if we bet half pot only. Again, they also need to fold all their 5s. And here, if I'm betting half pot entire range, like they still need to fold all of their 5s, they still need to raise shit tons with that 5-3, 3-2, random offsuited combos, weak aces. So again, I think on ace-high monotone boards with a second Broadway card and a third disconnected card to those two cards, the best exploitative strategy against pretty much everyone is going to be to go half pot only. I like that strategy a lot, and that's something I came up with whilst looking at the above strategies, basically. So let's go back to the exploit. I'm wondering if they should be turning 5s into a bluff on rivers. So this guy was the guy who's calling his 5s. Let's say he calls. Check, check, check. Let's say we check back the turn. So we're going to be checking back with some aces and some kings. The rivers are blank. And I wonder if he should be turning a 5 into a bluff if he does call with it on the flop. Nah, he shouldn't turn a 5 into a bluff. And I don't think people will be anyways. Oh wait, we were looking at the wrong player. Well, he still shouldn't be turning a 5 into a bluff. But jack high, even queen high with one heart, he can be turning into a bluff. Which makes sense. And do we bet check bet? We do bet check bet with all aces that we check the turn. We will sometimes have a flush. What flushes are we checking on the turn? Almost none. Okay. Queen 4 or Queen Jack. Okay. Almost none, basically. And occasionally check betting with some air, like, I don't know, 20% of the time, which isn't much. 3/4 or full pot, both work. Okay, cool. And good to know that he shouldn't be turning any weak pairs into bluffs, and he should be kind of betting half pot or maybe a block bet with his aces and kings, which he probably will be anyways. So, like, yeah, I think we get a lot of value from fives on the flop, which is why I like this strategy quite a lot.